You look anywhere online when it comes to Star Trek, and you'll run into the debate. Kirk or Picard? Good question, good debate, but I've never seen this debate stretched into politics. That is, of course, until there was Ted Cruz. Now, in an interview with the New York Times, Ted Cruz was talking about his book, and in it he said that he is a die-hard Trekkie. Not TNG, but more of the original series. So the original Enterprise 1960s. So in the interview, the interviewer is going to ask, okay, so you say you're a Trekkie, so why don't you answer the question, Kirk or Picard? For Ted Cruz, he says, look, absolutely James T. Kirk. James Tiberius Kirk. He is my man. Why? Well, he goes into several different points. Well, first, he said, if you look at Star Trek The Next Generation, it basically splits James T. Kirk into two people. Picard was Kirk's rational side, and William Riker was his passionate side. I prefer a complete captain. To be effective, you need both heart and mind. And of the original series, he says, look, Star Trek was a little grittier. Kirk is the working class, while Picard, well, he was an aristocrat. You know how we feel about aristocrats, right? About smart people. Kirk is a passionate fighter for justice. Picard is a cerebral philosopher. The original Star Trek pressed for racial equality, which was one of its best characteristics, but it did so without sermonizing. Interesting. So Kirk is a passionate fighter for justice, while Picard is a cerebral philosopher. Now, when asked whether or not what party each belongs to, this is hilarious. He thinks Kirk would be a Republican. Oh boy. And Picard would be the Democrat. Now, William Shatner, the original actor that played James T. Kirk, got into this, and he's going to disagree with Ted Cruz. He says, look, he goes to Twitter and says, Star Trek wasn't political. I'm not political. I can't even vote in the U.S. So to put a geocentric label on interstellar characters is downright silly. Okay. Look, Star Trek wasn't political in nature, but it did have political themes. For example, even as Ted Cruz alluded to, it had racial equality. It was also very diverse. I mean, the original crew of the Enterprise, it's a very diverse crew. Also, the future of Star Trek, the whole setting, features Earth as a utopia. They had free energy in the form of antimatter, and that was available for everyone, not just people who had money. And you know what that means, too. Well, if you have free energy from antimatter, which, by the way, you can make today, well, what does that mean for the oil industry? Oh, there is no oil industry. There is no coal. And half of Republican heads just exploded. The Enterprise isn't run on gas, okay? There's no shell stations on Mars, or on Vulcan, or on Alpha Centauri, okay? They're not going to fill up. No oil. Already, as I said, Republican heads exploding. Now, I'm going to explode the other half. They also, in the Star Trek future, they had no money. At least, of course, inside the Federation. Money existed otherwhere, in other places, and other planets. But in the Federation, there was no money. Because they got rid of poverty, hunger, homelessness, and etc. It's been eradicated throughout many member planets in the Federation. No money, no hunger, no homelessness. All that's taken care of. And the best part is they did it without the free market. Remember, you don't have money, you don't have a market. You don't have the free market. So you have no money. People don't have to work for a living, but they still get everything that they need. I think we have a word for that. Oh my God, socialism. Oh dear God. Does that mean Kirk is a socialist? Oh no. And as I said, money doesn't exist inside the Federation, it exists outside of it. A good example, and this is from The Next Generation, I realize, but there was a race called the Ferengi. Now, the Ferengi were all about money. And look, if I were to liken the Republican Party today to any alien race in the Star Trek universe, it would have to be, for the most part, the Ferengi. And maybe a little bit of a cross from the Cardassians as well. And I'll explain that. See, the Ferengi were about pure, unbridled, unregulated capitalism. And nothing more. The acquisition of wealth was the most important thing in the world. And you used any method at your disposal to get that wealth. Screwing over business partners and friends and taking all the money. That's what they were all about. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, kind of does. Bribes. Well, we have legalized bribes in the form of campaign contributions. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Now, the Cardassian angle comes from, of course, having a strong authoritarian government, which is what they love, despite the fact that conservatives say, no, we don't want that. They idolize Putin and Assad. Strong authoritarian leaders. And of course, they love the military, and they love to go and conquer, I'm talking to the Cardassians here, they love to go and conquer lesser advanced worlds. In the name of liberation. Oh, we're liberating you. We're going to liberate the Bajorans. Oh. Sounds a lot like what the Republican Party loves to do. Going to war. As I said, the whole problem here is that Ted Cruz actually misses the message of Star Trek. And that's why I bring this up. That's why I talk about this. Because I'm a complete sci-fi nerd. I've just been nerding out for like the last 5 minutes over this whole thing. He misses the point. It's amazing how you can watch the whole series and completely miss the point. So what was the point? Well, the story of Star Trek is about humanity getting beyond the stuff that faces us today to a better future. Getting rid of greed. Getting rid of racism, poverty. Not starting useless wars. And actually embracing science, education, social justice, equality. And of course, the most important thing is humanity's insatiable appetite for learning new things about the universe around us. And of course, all of that just warped right by Ted Cruz.